Are you ready to get fired up about Power Up Radio with Dr. Pat? This new show is unleashed, unshaken, unstoppable, as Dr. Pat brings mind-blowing news conversations with top world thought leaders unleashed like never heard before. Conversations covering leading-edge and headline-worthy topics from pop culture to presidents, sex to spirituality, surviving to thriving. Dr. Pat is powered up and you don't want to miss it. Think authentic and spontaneous, fun no matter what. Power Up Radio starts now.
I've got a great show for you today. One of the things I want to say is, first of all, this is our Power Up show, and you know what we're doing and thinking about what does it mean to be powered up. Many of you have said, well, are you really like, is this from the Dr. Pat show? And I'm like, yeah, same show, but it's a different kind of topic. You know, for me, what I'm doing is I'm basically looking at some of the things we talk about and have talked about on the Dr. Pat show, and we're going to the next level of it. And what that means is that when we talk about things that affect us, maybe it affects us personally, maybe it affects us in our lives, maybe we worry about things. What are some of the things that we can know more about and then make informed decisions? So I want to talk about plastic for a minute. So back in the day, I worked in corporate America. I worked in telephone company, AT&T. Very different than the AT&T you hear about today. It was so big, this phone company, that Judge Green and some of these antitrust people came in and said, you're so big, you're a monopoly, we got to break you up. Kind of like Facebook. Hello, Facebook. But really, they did an evaluation, right? And they said, you're too big, we got to break you up. Nobody else can get in the market. And I know Facebook's under that scrutiny now. I'm not so sure about Twitter, but for sure, somebody sitting over there in the Senate, I know a couple of folks over there in the Senate and in the Congress right now, they're just like, hey, they big, right? Maybe some of these people were like, hey, the phone company big, break them up, break them up. So you think about that now, and it's hard to know whether that was a smart move or not. But the people that filed the suit that really forced our government to do that, they were like MCI, I think they were, was it MCI? I think it was. But they were like, oh, we can't compete with them. They're so big. They own all the cables. Oh, they're so big. They own all this. They're so big. Oh, they own all this. So you break them up. But some of the things that were done in this company outside of Big Bang Theory, thank you, Arno Penzias, my Friday bagel guy, Dr. Arno. But some of the things that they did from a humanity perspective were brilliant. You know, when you're that big and you've got people in the organization that care, you do innovative things. And so one day, back in the day, in Jersey, New Jersey, people don't know this about New Jersey. Doesn't make sense, but it's true. All of a sudden, there's this thing called recycle. What? It's like a thing. And came to us because AT&T, office buildings everywhere, a Class A laboratory in Jersey, right? Murray Hill, Bell Labs, OMG, right? So they come there and they say, got to have a campaign. You've got to really figure out a way to get people to take this thing we call plastic and or paper and or in Jersey, cans, and put them in this bucket. So here's what started for me a learning about plastic. We had a campaign. It was so successful. Thank you for when I managed the graphics company. Managed graphics for a year, turned that business from a negative 2 million to a positive 3 million. And myself, under the guidance of one of my mentors, Mary Louise Smith, automated it. And out of that came Nina, the best artist I've ever met. I pretty much learned everything about graphics and art from about 6 of those people. Nina was one of them. And out of that became a campaign. And the campaign was called the Purple Paper Eater. It was a campaign. Little did I know that that small campaign, that initiative in New Jersey, and by the way, if you folks don't want to recycle, don't go to Jersey. It's not the place to go. Out of the gate, the guidelines for recycling were 1, separate buckets for everything. 2, if you're going to put that can in a bucket, you better peel the label off. 3, everything is recyclable, sort them. And 4, one of the best uses of talent was to give jobs to people that were either physically challenged or otherwise, but could do a great job. And off went recycling in New Jersey. Did people moan and groan? I watched Linda's mom, and then I watched Linda's mom school me about how I was not taking the paper off the plastic or the cans properly. And I never forgot that. But what do you learn about that? Paper, plastic, cans. Where the heck are these things going? Now we know where garbage went in Jersey. Just saying, until everybody was told, do not drop, no garbage in the Hudson anymore. Stop that. Thank God for that. But there was a time where everything went in the Hudson. How do I know? Walking down the shore, Jersey shore, didn't walk with the situation. He hadn't been born yet. Same shore though. And you're walking down the shore on a beautiful day. And I like to get there when nobody was there. And you step on something and you feel something go through the bottom of your foot. And you look at it and it's a hypodermic needle. And I got to say, the folks over there at Peacekeeper and the people that cleaned up the Hudson, you guys are amazing. You did a great job and still doing it. See, the reason I'm talking about this is because we're going to talk about microplastic in a minute. And we're going to talk about where we have come from this initial notion of, I think I'm not going to get my milk in glass anymore. I got to tell you, my stepmom was like, I'm getting my milk in glass. Well, how do we go from that? How do we go from that packaging to now a different world? I had a friend of mine who is in the industry and who said to me, I got to just tell you everything's plastic. I said, no, that can't be possible. Everything cannot be plastic. He said, yes, everything is plastic. And I said, how could everything be plastic? He said, I guarantee you that every functioning part of everything that's put together is plastic. And when he told me this, I looked at my laptop at the time, which was not plastic at the time. And I said, there's no way that you're going to take my laptop and you're going to make my laptop plastic. You can't. You can't do this. We need these iron computers and stuff. How are you going to make them? Okay. Long story short, here's the world we live in. We live in the world of being uneducated, uninformed, undesirable in terms of what we want to learn about the plastic crisis. So I'm part of a couple of organizations. I like the 4Ocean people. They are doing something incredible. Look at the pictures of places across the globe. Look at what they do with their plastic. What do we know about plastic, but what do we know about microplastics? Microplastics, what are they? They're filled with chemical compounds. Everybody heard PVC, vinyl. Everybody hear that? They're also filled with industry chemicals, names that are too long for this show. Introduced in what we could record as the 1950s, but that's not even true. It's actually before that. But they were used because, whoa, we could create hard plastic. As a matter of fact, I have a waste can home that Linda and I, up until about a month ago, like a month ago when we moved into the new place, and Linda helped me move, did we realize that this thing that we thought was glass and so carefully packed, but then dropped and it didn't break, it wasn't glass. It was plastic. Do you know how many things in home that you might think are glass, but are really not glass? Let me ask you a different question. Do you know how many things that are in your home or that you will bring in your home and you will put in a place where you either will cook with them, eat with them, store your food in them, drink your drinks from them? Because you see, we've addressed the recycling issue because now we have the little triangles and they say, like, if you drink from this bottle, oh, it's a thing, you throw it over here. But about a month ago, I was informed by a very close friend of mine. She said, you can't recycle that. And I said, it's plastic. It shouldn't it go in the no, it's not plastic. That's not recyclable. What kind of thing would be made that we couldn't recycle? Why couldn't you recycle it? We go down a path and we're getting ready to do the show. And Edvin is my producer. And I said to Edvin, we're going to do this really cool show. What would you want to do a show about? He said, microplastics in our lives. And I said, great, microplastics in our life. What product that looks like plastic that you can even imagine in your wildest, craziest dreams? Like it looks like cellophane. It looks like, I don't know, like shrink wrap. And they'd wrap in all the furniture with it, by the way. Like all my furniture like wasn't tied together like with a rope. It was like this like long roll of something, which I thought was recyclable. Until I find out it is not recyclable. So New Jersey, it makes sense given the history of Jersey that people that study this might be from Rutgers. Why? Because New York, New Jersey has a deep experience with dumping waste in the Hudson River that shows up in people's lawns. But let's talk about this thing we call microplastics. Edvin, this is a topic that you wanted to bring to the forefront. Microplastics, right?
Yeah. Um,
What is it about this thing that got your attention?
um, it's just something that made me really think about how it's really getting into my body every single day.
Mm,
And it's something that's not really researched up until maybe the last 10 years. Um, in the last 10 years, they've started doing, rat lab experiments with phthalates, specifically, and bisphenol, which is basically the chemical that they put in plastic to make it harder. That's one of the major differences between when you see a really flimsy bottle and, let's say, a smart water bottle. One's really thick, really durable, and the other one's pretty flimsy. The one that's durable probably has more chemicals in it that's really bad for you. So if you were to leave that in your car for it to be warmed up, then your research says if your bottle's kept in during the day, if it's warmed up with water inside, then your water's already contaminated with those chemicals. And not apart from just microplastics, there's also nanoplastics that aren't even visible to the eye.
oh yeah,
So
those are crazy right there.
yeah,
Yeah. So let's talk about for a minute. I mean, it's a short show. We're probably going to do a part two. The first company to ever sell fully synthesized or synthetic plastics was a Bakelite Corp, right? 1922, kind of made a big deal of it, called it the material of 1,000 uses. That was an understatement, FYI. Yeah, it is the material of like every use. I'm just saying, because we're going to talk about the evolution of this. But I don't think we ever realized that in the world we live in, that we would be creating a crisis that nobody wants to talk about, that we have landfills in underdeveloped countries. It's probably not politically correct to say that, but I want to talk about it. When I mean underdeveloped, it's like these are people that still live in beautiful land. right? That beautiful land. We haven't built skyscrapers on it. They don't have mega highways, but they need water. And how are they getting water? How are they getting food? Well, it's being wrapped. It's not being sent to them in glass. Our medicine, is our medicine even being sent in glass today? I don't know. That's a big question. We'll hold that. But plastic is in our packaging and encases everything from laundry detergent, prescription pills, and the food we eat and beverages we drink. And yet is very difficult, Edvin, I think, as you will attest to give me a shelf life, people. So, Edmund, who are the people doing these experiments? Because there are people that are looking at this and saying, "Whoa, what if you are that person that has been exposed to this? What effect does it have on you? Does it have any effect on your child? Maybe you're carrying." But why was this like a giant concern for you about what you were putting in your body?
For me, it's it's just it has to do with your reproductive system and specifically your endocrine system, which for a female it's comprised of your uterus, placenta, ovaries, kidney, your glands, pancreas, duodenum, your stomach, liver, thymus gland, thyroid gland, pituitary gland, pineal
So,
gland
like
especially.
basically everything.
Yes, and then for men it's their testes, and then all above that I just listed, right? So
Mm.
majority of the stuff that these chemicals affect are these things, and they're very important, especially when it comes to a man's reproductive system and a woman's reproductive system. And a lot of the research is finding that it can hurt either a pregnant woman, so it could have health defects for a baby. It can make less. It can make men and women less, or women less infertile, and men more sterile, which is obviously a big problem.
Yeah. Here's a quote. Let's just take a quote out of an article. And I really want to say, for those of you that are listening, and YouTube, if you're listening, everything we're presenting right here is factual. We can give you the references. I want to point to consumerreports.org. Just want to point to this for reference, April 30th, 2020. This is what this article says. Everything that Edmund has said is supported in this article. And then this. The question is, what is the problem? After all, manufacturers, certain regulatory agencies have long assured us that plastics are safe for human health. I'm going to stop there because I just want to use common sense, but I won't. So in the US, we have this robust system. We look at the materials that are in contact with food, plastic managed by food, right? Karen Schmidt, thank you, Karen. Food and Drug Administration, thank you. Senior Director of Regulatory Technical Affairs, and the American Chemistry Council and industry group represent plastic chemical manufacturers say this: consumers should feel very confident using any plastic coming into contact with food that they would buy in a grocery store. Okay, yet growing concern, right in the article. Growing concern. So, what is a concern, right? So, it's not that we have photos of whales and albatross and sea turtles washing ashore, their stomachs clogged with the stuff. Or maybe not the stories about swirling ocean vortexes collecting litter from all around the globe. Maybe you're not concerned about that because you don't live in the middle of the ocean, or so you think you don't. Or maybe it's like reliable research now showing, hello, this is it, reliable empirical analytical research now showing that tiny bits of plastic are in our food, our drinking water, the air we breathe, and yes, inside our bodies. Let me say that again. This is research, everybody. Reliable research now shows that tiny bits of plastic are in our food, drinking water, in the air we breathe, and yes, inside our bodies. You know, when the Japanese, a couple of years ago, we went through this a bit, and there was a picture of the folks in Japan, not sure what city, but all of them were walking around with oxygen masks. We all kind of made fun of that. I look back at that now and I'm thinking to myself, where can I get my portable oxygen mask? So here we go. The credit card here. Here's the credit card. This is from the article. Thank you, Senator Tom Udall, not Democrat, New Mexico. I don't even know if you're a Democrat in New Mexico anymore. It doesn't matter. The article, here's what you said. He was holding up a credit card and he said, this credit card here, this is how much plastic you're consuming every week. And he held up a Visa card and he said, announcing legislation meant to reduce plastic pollution right? And this is in 2020. I don't even want to talk about what happened to that legislation. But he was referencing a preliminary estimate by some scientists that plastic, the average person may be eating and drinking. Please listen to this. I don't know if Edvin's got a picture to show. Each person, average person, may be eating and drinking totals as much as 5 grams per week. He held up that credit card, people. 5 grams per week. One research review published in 2019 calculated that average Americans eat, drink, and breathe in more than 74,000 microplastic particles each year. So what is the experiment that most of us have done growing up and trying to figure out what the green movement is like, myself included? We're going to launch a green channel as part of our expansion. I've done many talks called the 50 Shades of Green because I believe that you can enter knowledgeable, informed decisions about climate and the earth at any level. I believe you don't have to do it all, but I do believe we need the truth. We need the truth. Some scientists say it's likely ingesting these tiny bits of plastic could expose us to harmful chemicals. There can be no effect, says Pete Myers, PhD, Dr. Pete, founder of the chief scientific nonprofit Health and Scientist, adjunct professor at chemistry at Carnegie Mellon University. People have this idea that plastic is clean, a sterile object that doesn't come apart, says Dr. Sherry Mason, sustainability coordinator at Penn State. I love it when these Pennsylvania schools go at it. Yeah, I just love it. You know, my mentor and chair on my research was from Carnegie Mellon. So I just love it. But in fact, raw materials of plastic are created from what? Do I say the double F word? Fossil fuels, including oil and gas. Thousands of chemicals, depending upon which you're talking about. Hard, soft, flexible. They include something that is called BPA. Also phthalates. When you hear those words, those chemical words, here's what we want to know. This is why we're doing this really short interview, part 1. Probably going to do a whole bunch of these. I can't get it. I want to get really excited about it because I could go on forever. I can't wait to invite some of my friends that we talked about cleaning up the Hudson with, many years ago. But here's the deal. They can leach into foods. I'm not saying this. I'm saying the science is saying this. These chemicals, these BPAs and phthalates can flow and leach into foods touched by plastic, especially when plastic is warmed. How many of you leave your plastic bottles in the car, your plastic anything in the car, your baby's plastic thing in the car? Do you do that? Do you think that's something that you might do accidentally, not knowing? Do you think you might not do it after maybe you hear this and you think, I'm not going to leave my baby's bottle in the car? I know it's empty. There's nothing in it. I'm leaving it in a hot car. What's the temperature we get in a hot car? You ever measure the temperature in a closed window hot car, even in the Pacific Northwest on a day like that? Today, look in your car when you go out. Look at that water bottle that's sitting in the front seat of your car. Before you pick up that water bottle and drink it, please go and Google this article, consumerreports.org, health and fitness, how to eat less plastic. This is such a strange article title. How do we eat less plastic, microplastics in food and water? It's not even telling you how we can stop eating them. The article is like, basically, you can't. It's like you can't stop eating them. The article is like, let us tell you how you can eat less. It's a great topic Edvin picked. And, and there's so much of this. The article goes on, and I could do this if I had an hour. I not only could talk about the menace of microplastics, but we can start to bring up articles. We can start to bring up empirical research that talks about autopsies. We can bring all of that up. And I'm not going to do it because I don't want this show to be pulled from YouTube or Facebook or anywhere. I want to just speak the truth. I want to talk from what the scientists are saying, what this article says, where you can find out more. But what's gone wrong with recycling? what's happening? Have we moved on beyond thinking we've done enough about this? How is it we have social media on everything that a celebrity does or doesn't do, but you have to scratch really hard to see the piles of plastic in Africa and India and in the United States and floating on a barge in the Pacific? This show today is to say to all of you, not asking you to change what you do, but what if you could get educated a bit more? That the next time you think, I'm going to leave my child's plastic bottle in the car, maybe I'm going to leave it in the car with water because I want to keep it in there because, coming out of the grocery store is going to be the bottle. Take it in the store with you. We're looking at nanoplastics, generally smaller, 1,000 nanoplastics. There's a 2019 report in the World Health Organization found that we unknowingly ingested microplastic for decades without clear negative consequences. Oh, okay. Oh, please, can we start to look at some of the birth effects, things going on? While there is much we don't know, we have learned that micro and nanoplastics are everywhere. Snow in the Arctic carries substantial amounts of microplastics, according to this study. Even more has been detected in the Alps. Microplastics can even be found in the seemingly pristine sand of the Hawaiian beaches. So I want to leave you with this question. Even if you don't believe the science I'm talking about, even if you don't believe that it could have a potential harm, the rest of this article talks about a trail of chemical harm. Please think about it. Please think about the fact that we're looking at sicker, fatter, poorer. New York University, NYU, Leonardo Transante, doctor, director. That's his comment. He's talking about his book, The Endocrine System, Disrupting Chemicals. He's raising a flag about chemicals and plastic. He's talking about how it affects the brain, developmental in children. He's talking about the fact that 10,000 adult men die from cardiovascular disease linked to phthalates every year. I'm going to wrap it up right now, but stay tuned for part 2, because when we start to talk about the next part, we're going to break this down with real doctors. We're going to create a panel and we're going to have a chat. We'll see you next time.